It's the mother of all talk shows. It's the mother of all talk shows. It's the mother of all talk shows.
Go get 'em, George.
The Mandelson files have dropped. Keir Starmer lied to Parliament and may have to resign office in the morning. And the Daily Mail has just broken the story that the Epstein files were hacked by a foreign spy in a break-in at an FBI office 3 years ago. I wonder which nationality that foreign spy could possibly have been. And America did murder 175 Iranian schoolgirls, despite the barefaced, vile lying of Donald Trump in his press conference a couple of nights ago. And by the way, he's not Caligula, he's Crassus. And more of that later. Stay tuned. The Epstein files have been burgled. They have been hacked by a foreign spy at an FBI office 3 years ago. Well, either that hacked material was used to turn Donald Trump into the mirror image of what he claimed he was going to be. The peace president became the endless war president as a result of that hack. It's hard to imagine, other than Israel, what nationality that spy could have been, because breaking into an FBI office, I'm presuming, is not the easiest thing in the world. If that foreign spy was from another country other than Israel, and that they now possess all of the things that the Department of Justice has bent over backwards to deny to the American people who pay their wages, one must presume that the release of these documents may very well be imminent. Speaking of documents, Keir Starmer asked for a report on the Peter Mandelson affair, the bosom buddy of Jeffrey Epstein, in whose house he stayed when Epstein was in prison for prostitution and child sex trafficking charges, Mandelson claimed that he had been perfectly upfront to the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister claimed that Mandelson had lied to him and deceived him about the extent and the depth of his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. It turns out it was Peter Mandelson that was telling the truth, and Keir Starmer, for the umpteenth time, has been caught red-handed lying by a report which he himself ordered. The British media is in overdrive this evening about whether or not this will require the resignation of the British Prime Minister tomorrow, another victim of the Epstein affair. There have been royals, there have been former Prime Ministers, but this would be the biggest scalp of them all. By convention, there's no argument about it. Any minister found to have lied to the British Parliament is honour bound to resign. John Profumo, the former British War Minister, who had an affair with a prostitute, Christine Keeler, simultaneously as Mr. Ivanov, the defence attaché at the then Soviet embassy, was also, they were actually sleeping with her in a bed still warm for the other two war ministers and a hooker. Mr. Profumo claimed to Parliament that he had never met Miss Keeler. But when it was revealed that he had been sleeping with Miss Keeler, he promptly resigned from the Cabinet, from Parliament, from public life. He did the honourable thing after a series of dishonourable acts. But will Keir Starmer do the same? It's hard to see how he can survive this. It's there in black and white, underlined 3 times, in bold. The National Security Advisor, his National Security Advisor, Jonathan Powell, recommended against it. The most senior civil servant in the British Foreign Office recommended against it, in fact objected to it. The security services underlined in bold, highlighted the reputational risk to the government, to the country, and of course to the Prime Minister of appointing Peter Mandelson to this role. But he went ahead and he did it anyway, compounding the offence by claiming that he had not known about the extent and the depth of Mandelson's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. And he said that in Parliament. Ergo, he lied to Parliament. He must resign. His government was just responsible for the murder of multiple Russian civilians in the city of Bryansk when Storm Shadow missiles that he had given to Zelensky, but which require British technical engineering and aiming specialists to operate, it means the British government killed Russians in Bryansk, a Russian city. By international law standards, the Russian government would be perfectly legally justified to put a Kinzhal missile down the chimney of 10 Downing Street this evening. I'm sure that President Putin is too cautious a man to do that, but he would have every legal right to do so. One last British point. We have enjoyed the right to trial by jury, men and women, our peers, for 800 years. That's all. 800 years. The British citizen has had the right to trial by jury until today. The British government abolished the right to trial by jury today. Why? Because juries were regularly returning not guilty verdicts in the kind of cases that the heavily compromised Keir Starmer cabinet, almost all of them awash in blood-soaked shekels, bought and paid for by the Israel lobby, could not allow to go on. After all, they have in excess of 2,000 people awaiting trial on terrorism charges for holding up a cardboard placard saying that they wanted the genocide to end and that they supported one particular Palestine Solidarity organization. If they all got a trial by jury, the jury and court system would quickly become jammed up and not a single one of them would be convicted, compounding, heaping humiliation on the British government that foolishly ordered the police to arrest them. So they put up the Deputy Justice Secretary in Britain to announce that there would be no more jury trials in Britain. Who is the Deputy Justice Secretary of the British Labour government? A woman called Sackman, quite appropriately this evening, a woman called Sackman, whose grandfather was an Israeli terrorist, land and house thief in occupied Palestine. Where did Sarah Sackman get her legal training? You're not going to believe this one. She got it in Israel. She's an Israeli lawyer, and she's the Deputy Justice Secretary in Britain, and she has just abolished the ancient Magna Carta right to trial by jury. There's all kinds of documents dropping this evening. The New York Times has cited and has published the Pentagon report about who murdered the 175 schoolgirls aged between 7 and 12 in a primary school in Iran. You may, if you were foolish enough like me to stay up all night to wait for Donald Trump's press conference, have heard Trump's version of that event. He said that Iran may have done it themselves. He said, when told by a journalist that there's video of a Tomahawk missile entering the school's roof, blowing up the school, he said, well, anybody could have a Tomahawk missile, which is quite alarming if you think about it, but also completely untrue. The United States is the manufacturer of Tomahawk missiles, and it sells them to only 3 other countries. All Five Eyes countries. Was it them that fired the Tomahawk and murdered all these schoolgirls? Is that what you're saying, Mr. President? The journalists ought to have said, but didn't, because most of them are prostitutes rather than journalists. They allowed the lie to spread that Iran had somehow got itself an American Tomahawk missile and murdered 175 of their own girls in the first hour of the war, which Trump and Netanyahu, where is Netanyahu, by the way? He's been uncontactable for 48 hours. Well, we can only live in hope that him and Sarah are okay. Him and Netanyahu launched a war by murdering the head of state, an 86-year-old cleric, the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and 5 minutes later they murdered 175 schoolgirls. And we now know, thanks to the New York Times, thanks to the Pentagon investigation, that it was a targeting error on the part of the American gunners, which, as Tucker Carlson raised this week, raises the question of who were the targeters. Were the targeters AI? Was this missile fired to such devastating effect on young life? The largest atrocity committed by the United States of America since the Vietnam War? the largest massacre of young girls in the recorded history of humanity ever in the history of the world? Was it a computer that targeted that school, or was it a human? And what accountability will there be for the human, or the human who fed the information in to the computer which drove the AI? Documents are dropping every minute, even as I am speaking. And we'll keep you up to date with them. But let me turn to that press conference. There's a tendency, and I started it, to describe Donald Trump as Caligula. I think you'll find I was the first person to make the comparison of the crazed, unhinged Roman Emperor Caligula, so crazed that he appointed his horse a proconsul of Rome. Donald Trump appointed his son-in-law, who's a horse's ass, as his chief negotiator in the Middle East, in Russia, and in Iran. And Trump very carefully pointed out in one of the few cogent moments in his press conference that it was Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, and Steve Witkoff, the real estate operator, I'm not joking, these were the people that plunged the world into war. The son-in-law of an unhinged emperor and his realtor from New York City. No diplomats, no intelligence, no military, no. These were the two people who plunged the world into war by persuading Donald Trump that the Iranians were about to attack the United States of America. Now, I called him Caligula, but thanks to the wise people on social media this very day, I have discovered that he is far more comparable to Crassus. Crassus, the Roman emperor, was famously greedy, gluttonous, famously in love with nothing but money. Crassus was jealous of his predecessors, the martial achievements and prowess of the likes of Pompey, of the likes of Julius Caesar. So Crassus decided to leave his business and march on Persia. And he actually wrote that the Romans would be there so plentifully that the Persians would run out of arrows. I'm not making this up, by the way. Sure, they've got dangerous arrows, said Crassus, but we are the biggest army that has ever been assembled. Everybody respects us. Everybody wishes they were us. And the Persians don't have enough rockets, arrows to stop us. He really said that. It's carved, written on papyrus, or whatever it was they did at that time. Well, of course, the Persians had far more arrows than Crassus imagined they would. And they so crushed the Roman emperor and his forces that they captured Crassus alive. They cut a hole in his skull and they poured melted gold into the skull of Crassus of Rome. Now, I mean, some fools say there's no God, but that sounds very much like karma to me. The Karma Cafe, where there are no menus. You get what you deserve. In this unhinged press conference, contradictory, unintelligible, incoherent, the war might well be very soon over, but on the other hand, might very well just be beginning. In this press conference, it was possible for all to see just how broken a presidency, the presidency of Donald Trump, now is. It was written on every flab on his jowls. It was written in the corner of his eyes. It was written in the flat, abject pack of lies to which he treated the American public and others, fools like me, who stayed up to watch it. Now, his former friends are abandoning him at a rate of knots. His former friends are recalling the words of the great English Victorian poet Robert Browning. Just for a handful of silver you left us, just for a riband to wear on your coat. And in fact, it may very well be that the failure of the Nobel Peace Prize Committee to award him the riband that he really wanted because of his jealousy on his predecessors and their imagined successes that has led us into this abyss. The oil price, the stock markets, the grinding to a halt of the economy of the Western world may very well be the lasting legacy of President Crassus, Donald J. Trump. We've got Professor Mohammad Marandi. He is on the front line, has helped us through the multiple crises between the United States and Iran, and at personal risk to himself. He's come back to tell us more this evening. You don't want to miss it. Stay tuned.
The airwaves. This savannah is a rigid dichotomy of fact and fiction. As Fisher says, the Twitter sphere where the slightest misjudgment can spell being cancelled. One species rules over the airwaves through its ability to adapt and survive in even the harshest environments. The George Galloway. The top cat in these parts, it is mostly active on Sunday evenings in Britain and mid-afternoon in the United States. It seldom roars during the day. Most notable for its wide variety of headdress, it protects these parts from the mainstream media. You can catch this fine specimen on the mother of all talk shows. Don't pick a fight with it. They've been known to bite back.
You are listening to the mother of all talk shows with George Galloway.
Professor Seyed Mohammad Marandi will be with me momentarily. First, let me tell you tonight's poll. Has Trump failed to win his Iran war? Yes or no? You can vote on my Telegram channel, t.me/George Galloway. You can vote on my X. You can vote on the YouTube community poll. You can vote on the YouTube stream. If you're watching on the YouTube stream, please subscribe to the channel and give a thumbs up to the show. It really matters. And if you are one of the advance guard, the creme de la creme, and support us through patreon.com/George Galloway, there's also a ballot box there 45,000 people have already voted, and I'm only now announcing the poll. If you want to call the show, it's toll-free in the United States. It is +1 844 944 3344. That's the United States and Canada, separate countries for the time being. +1 844 944 3344. It's free of charge in Britain and Ireland, separate countries may they soon and always be. 0808 196 5522. That's 0808 196 5522. And the worldwide number is 0044 203 966 2625. Now, I'm hoping that Professor Seyed Marandi is ready to join me now. As I say, he's joining us at some considerable risk. And he has become a global figure. He's become a figure of such dignity, such integrity, well, such majesty, that millions, tens of millions of people are now following him on every platform that they can find him. He is the professor of English literature and Orientalism at the University of Tehran, but he also has emerged as the most effective explainer of events between Iran and the surrounding Arab countries and the United States of America too. Professor Marandi warned us here on the Mother of All Talk Shows, time after time after time, what would happen, not might or could, but what would happen if Donald Trump and Netanyahu, after their experience of the 12-day war last year, launched another attack on Iran. Professor Marandi warned us that they needn't think that because they start the war, that they will be the ones to decide when it finishes. He warned us about the dangers to the Arab Gulf countries of hosting American and even some of them Israeli military bases and personnel on their soil. He warned us of the dangers to those countries of holding American weaponry, staging American bases, and whatever they claimed about not wanting America to attack Iran from the bases that they had granted them, they would be held responsible for the actions of the United States. Professor Marandi warned us that the Israelis had depleted so much of their defensive weaponry in the 12-day war last year, whilst Iran had multiplied the sophistication, power, and number, quantity of their offensive armaments, that the contest between Iran and Israel could only end one way, and no amount of censorship would be able to conceal it. Well, every prediction he made on this show came true. We're still waiting for him to connect. We pray that he is all right, but let me talk to a legend. In the meantime, it's May in Oklahoma. May, welcome.
Hi, George. How are you today?
By the grace of God, I'm good, and the better for hearing your voice.
Oh, how wonderful to talk to you. Wow, I can't believe it. I absolutely love Professor Marandi. I think when we first started talking, we were talking about the Persian people and how wonderful, gracious, and beautiful they are. And everything that's going on here recently is an absolute abomination. But I did want to call you and let you know that there's good news. Did you know that Jesus is coming and Trump is his travel agent? I'm so glad they decided to start this war to bring on Armageddon, because, what Israel has been doing is not enough, I guess. They needed Trump to take care of it. I heard the funniest thing last night.
May, we've lost you. I'm sorry, because I was thoroughly enjoying that call. Jesus has been anointing, apparently, Donald J. Trump. Now, what we know about Trump, never mind the Epstein affair, what we know about Trump from his own mouth, from his own life as lived in the spotlight before becoming president, makes him the least likely Christian anointee, if that's a word, that anyone could possibly imagine. But now that we know what we know as a result of the Epstein affair, the idea that Donald Trump has been anointed by Jesus to bring about the return of Jesus is, to call it theological garbage is really a serious understatement. First of all, it actually presumes that we are God rather than God, that we can force God to return. That's what it means. If we do this, God will return. Well, that means we think we're God. If God is God, he will decide when to return to the world. And moreover, the ancient scripture is very clear on this, that it will be the emergence of an antichrist who will arise from the west, who will have risen to a dominant position in the west, and who will appear on the battlefield in Armageddon as the Antichrist. And at that point, Jesus will return. So what we're saying here, Donald Trump is the Antichrist, or is he Christ's anointee? I just think he's a big, greedy Crassus. I think Crassus, about whom I'm learning more by the minute, is the absolute perfect candidate for the Antichrist. Let me give you the numbers again. +1 844 944 3344. That's for the US and Canada. Britain and Ireland 08081 965522. And the worldwide number 0044 203 966 2625. Let me take a quick break while we try and connect again with Professor Marandi. Stay tuned. Beautiful call, as always, robust. Terrific characterization of little Macron and the imposter Shah of Los Angeles. He is, of course, an imposter in two ways. He's an imposter in pretending that he has any support from the great mass of the 90 million Iranians who've not seen him since he was 4 years old, when he fled with their riches in the saddlebags, and the father and mother, emperor, empress, Shah, roamed around the world from Monaco to God knows where, spending the millions that they had stolen from the people of Iran. But he's a pretender, an imposter, for a second reason. The Pahlavis are not even the royal family of Iran. The royal family of Iran is ancient, millennia, and the rightful emperor or Shah, if there is such a thing as a rightful emperor, rightful Shah, was overthrown by a corporal in the Iranian army, the grandfather of this joker Reza. His grandfather was a corporal, a private soldier in the Iranian army, was raised to the rank of corporal, and then, with British backing, overthrew the actual monarch. And he had a son who was the infamous Shah of Shahs, the father of Reza. So he's a double imposter.
You are listening to the mother of all talk shows with George Galloway.
By the grace of God, we now have Professor Seyed Mohammad Marandi, who joins us from Tehran. Professor, you had us worried for a moment or two, but thanks to God, you're still with us, although so many of your compatriots have lost their lives and untold damage has been done by Israeli and American bombardment. But we're asking the question tonight on the poll, has Trump won his Iran war? What would your answer to that poll question be?
It's an utter failure. He promised a swift victory, and he actually said that he was surprised that the Iranians were striking at U.S. assets in the Persian Gulf. And that just shows how ignorant he and his advisors are, unless his advisors are lying to him so that he would pursue the war. That I don't know. But Iran obviously was going to strike back when the United States has bases across the Persian Gulf region, and these Arab family dictatorships, they facilitate aggression. Iran is going to strike back. And fortunately, Iran has hit back hard, and it has also been punishing the Israeli regime. And despite the censorship in occupied Palestine, the information that does come out is that the regime is being badly hammered. Yes, of course, Iran is also being hurt. It's fighting against the combined force of the global empire, the collective West, its regional proxies. Erdogan to the north is allowing NATO to gather information for the United States and Israel and the Israeli regime. Jordan provides airspace and bases, and all the countries in the Persian Gulf region, they are completely in line with US policy. So despite this enormous coalition, Iran is hitting back hard. The Americans have failed to take out its missile capabilities. It's failed to take out its missile production capabilities. It's failed to take out its drone capabilities and its drone production capabilities. And we see that Iran is hitting them day and night. So this is definitely a defeat. And now the Strait of Hormuz is closed. And that is going to create great difficulty for the global economy, but Western economies in particular. Yet they only have themselves to blame. Iran did not want this war. Iran did not start this war. Iran was negotiating like last time round. Iran was betrayed and attacked.
Well, we say you should have gone to Specsavers. In this case, they should have watched the mother of all talk shows, because everything you have just adumbrated as having happened, you warned would happen over and over again on this very show and elsewhere, I'm sure. There are reports this evening of a mini nuclear explosion in the town of Kurds in Iran. Others say it was perhaps one of these Moabs that they dropped on a mountain in Afghanistan, you may recall, in Trump's last term. Anything you can tell us about that? It produced a mushroom cloud. It was unusually devastating in its impact and volume. Anything you can tell us about that?
I don't know any details about that, and I don't know what sort of munitions were used. But George, they are utterly barbaric. The American armed forces is no better than the Israeli regime. They failed against Iran on the battlefield. They have not been able to destroy the underground drone bases, the underground missile bases, the production lines, and that has frustrated them. So they've been bombing cities. They've been bombing hospitals. They bombed the Red Crescent Society, the main building, the national building. They bombed the national emergency service building. They've been bombing them across the country. They've bombing Iranian national radio and television multiple times, and the list goes on. It's nonstop. They're slaughtering kids. They're attacking apartment blocks, and they're slaughtering families. They're bombing truck drivers who are taking food and goods from one city to another. They bomb their trucks. I know a person whose brother had hired 2 truck drivers to take goods from one city to another, and they were both killed. I was just informed a few hours ago today. This is what the Trump regime is doing. They failed on the battlefield. They take their revenge on ordinary people. This is exactly the sort of mentality that Zionists have.
Now, you know that Donald Trump, perhaps in the lowest point of his presidency, at least so far, told the press conference that he gave in Mar-a-Lago, his palace of depravity in Florida, perhaps not depravity, vulgarity, I meant to say, as my friend John White put it in a great piece he's written this evening. His palace of vulgarity at Mar-a-Lago, he gave a press conference in which, with a straight face, he said that maybe Iran had fired the Tomahawk missile at these 175 little girls, and presumably, therefore, Iran had 2 Tomahawk missiles because there was a double tap. 40 minutes later, the parents and the teachers and the emergency workers desperately trying to rescue these little girls were hit identically in the same spot. This was too much even for the Washington prostitutes to bear, and so they pressed him, and he said he'd wait till the report was in. Well, the report is now in, and the United States is guilty of one of the greatest war crimes in history, taking account of the actual target, little girls. What's your response to that?
George, they've been carrying out double tap attacks for days now, day and night, in city after city, across Tehran, as they bomb places. And then when people go to rescue, to seek for survivors, when first responders arrive and are busy, they strike again. They've been doing this for the entire 12 days. But in Tehran, it's been happening across the city. Just one example. And there have been lots of massacres. There have been families that have been wiped out in Tehran, multiple families. And apartment blocks that have been totally destroyed. They've bombed vehicles, not just the trucks, but they've bombed ambulances. They strike. Their focus is on civilian infrastructure. As I said, they failed to stop the missiles. They failed to stop the drones. So they're trying to terrorize the Iranian people. And this is the regime that says that it wants to save the Iranian people. And this is the Western media that's been quiet, that's been lying about tens of thousands of peaceful protesters being gunned down on the streets. That was a lie so that they could do this. Western media is a part of this war. They are foot soldiers in this war against the Iranian people. And the images are coming out day and night, but you don't see them in the Western media. Just like you don't see the images from the funeral today, where huge numbers of people went to the streets of Tehran under missile fire and carried out the funeral. At nights, as right now tonight, across Tehran and in other cities, people are on the streets in different neighborhoods, huge crowds in support of the armed forces. You don't see this in the Western media. The Western media will simply repeat their lies that the Iranian people are desperate, the Iranian people want a regime change in order to justify death and destruction. Even those who pretend to be against the war, they promote this narrative to legitimize death and destruction and war. But the facts on the ground are clear. People support the Islamic Republic of Iran. Even those who in the past, those young people who flirted with the rioters, who were on the streets when the terrorists were gunning down police officers and burning down clinics and mosques and schools and buses and fire trucks and ambulances, they were on the street. Those people, those young people have woken up to reality. They've now recognized what the United States really is, what the Israeli regime really is. I have 3 such examples among my own students, or at least students in my faculty, not necessarily my students, but who contacted me and said, how can we help? They wanted to make up for this, for what they felt that was the mistake that they made in the past. The country is united, but the West does not want people to know that. It has always been united, as we saw on the anniversary of the revolution, as we saw on January the 12th, after the riots, when people came to the streets to condemn the riots. But today it's even more united than that. But you won't have this acknowledged in the West. I was on the streets in a gathering a couple of days ago, a huge gathering, and they bombed Tehran, and hundreds of thousands of people were on the streets. Even though many people have left the city, the crowd was huge. No one budged, George. Men and women stood their ground. No one panicked. No one ran away. I've never seen such a scene in my life. Bomb after bomb after bomb fell, not far off from the gathering. Is this news in the West that the Americans and the Israelis are bombing nearby a major demonstration? There would be outrage in the West if it was anywhere else. But since they hate Iran so much, since they're so hostile towards the Iranian people, because Iran opposes genocide, Iran opposes apartheid, Iran opposes ethnic cleansing. That is Iran's sin. Iran's sin is that it supports the people of Gaza. It supports the people of Cuba that are being strangled as we speak. It supports the people of Venezuela. It supports the oppressed. It wants to be independent. That's what the revolution was about. And that is its sin. That is why it can be bombed. And the people who are steadfast on the streets supporting the armed forces and the state and the leader, they're erased from Western media. They are not acknowledged because that destroys the narrative. And the narrative is to bomb the city, to bomb the country, to destroy the infrastructure, to help the Israeli regime achieve its ultimate goal, which is the goal of the United States, as the US ambassador to the Israeli regime pointed out, that it's fine for the Israeli regime to take the entire region. But yet, while Iran is struggling to beat back the empire, we see that Erdogan and Mohammed bin Zayed and Sisi and Abdullah II, and all of them are on the other side.
Now, there are objective measurements that we can take on who's winning the war. One is there is no American warship within 700 kilometers of Iran. The Straits of Hormuz, which Trump boasted he was going to open. He said American warships, which are nowhere near, would escort tankers, and this drove the price of oil down, reversed the fall in the share price, and of course that turned out to be another brazen lie. So these are objective measurements. Equally, it's objective to say that the Iranian ballistic and today hypersonic missiles are still battering the apartheid state night after night. In fact, day after day and night after night. If Iran was a beaten country, if Iran had effectively been nullified, neither of these objective facts I've just cited would be true, would they?
Absolutely. And they keep saying that Iran is running out of missiles, that it is running out of launchers, that every day we're seeing that the Iranians are striking the Israeli regime, they're striking U.S. assets in the Persian Gulf. Some in the West complain, and they've taken it to the Security Council, that why is Iran striking these regimes in the Persian Gulf? These regimes host U.S. bases. These regimes are complicit in conspiring against the Iranian people. These regimes have blood on their hands. They can't have their cake and eat it too. They can't conspire against the Iranian people and let the Americans bomb Iran and use their territory to launch missiles or use their airspace to fly over to attack Iran, to use bases in these countries, the radar systems and other facilities against Iran, and then pretend that they're neutral. Iran is definitely going to strike back. It doesn't matter what happens in the UN Security Council or anywhere else. Iran is going to strike back when aggression is carried out. And Iran is not going to accept a ceasefire, George. Iran has to have
I wanted to come on to that very point, Professor. It's just like the last time. It's the people who launched the war who now want to end it. Call it an off-ramp, call it a ceasefire, call it, well, we've got nothing left to bomb, we might as well go home, however they want to describe it. They are the ones asking for the ceasefire. It's in the fancy American newspapers, it's in the fancy Israeli newspapers, that this is not going well. And maybe we should call a halt for a time. But that's the point, isn't it? It's only for a time. Iran's being asked to agree to a ceasefire only for this all to be resumed in a year or 2 years from now.
Exactly. And Iran is not going to accept such a ceasefire. If there's going to be a halt in the fighting, Iran has to have assurances that these tiny Arab family dictatorships in the Persian Gulf, these utterly corrupt proxies of the United States, whether it's Qatar, or the Emirates, or Kuwait, or Bahrain, they cannot be used against the Iranian people in the future. That's unacceptable for now. Also, Iran has to have assurances that the United States is not going to be able to attack Iran again. And Iran will demand full compensation for all the damages done. That is not something that Iran is going to relinquish. These are the reason why, George, we accepted a halt in hostilities during the 12-day war, because some people do criticize Iran for that, was because, true, we defeated the Israeli regime. They were the ones seeking for a ceasefire. But Iran saw its many flaws. It saw that it had to change a lot of things, because we ultimately knew that there was going to be a war. We knew that eventually the Trump regime or the regime in Washington is going to go to war with Iran. That's why Iran has been planning for 25 years. But during the 12-day war, Iran saw its strengths and its weaknesses, as we discussed before. So during the last 8-9 months, the Iranians have been working 24 hours a day to prepare itself for the big war. And they've been successful. The United States and the Israeli regime combined, and the bulk of the power is the United States, not the Israelis. Of course, the Israelis, whatever power they have, it's from the West. They are nothing. But this combined power with regional collaboration has been far less effective in destroying launchers, in destroying assets, key assets in Iran during the last 12 days compared to the other one. Why? Because the Iranians have prepared themselves. Through all sorts of means. The way in which they launch missiles, decoys, moving people around, moving key assets around. So the casualties are much less, the damage is much less, and Iran's firepower is much greater. So Iran made a smart move. It was winning. It decided that it should stop, swiftly prepare itself, and so that when what was inevitable, the inevitable aggression of the United States and the Israeli regime, the collective West and their regional proxies, when it happened, the Iranians were much better prepared. And today, George, Iran has the upper hand. It's painful. Children are being slaughtered. People are being murdered. The son-in-law of my sister, 3 of his friends were killed today. This is pain. This is painful for the nation. But we have no other option. This is a war for survival. And we have to fight this war. For the regime in Washington, this is a war of choice. And whatever happens, George, with the rise of the price of energy, which will continue because the Strait of Hormuz is not going to be opened. Until conditions are met, the Strait of Hormuz will remain closed. The prices across the world will increase, but there's only the Zionists to blame. And they push the United States towards war. So the international community recognizes that Iran did not want war. We were doing trade. It was the United States and the Israeli regime that attacked us. So if the global economy goes down, no one can blame Iran. It is the United States and the Israeli regime. And if Iran is not accepting a ceasefire, it's because Iran knows that if they do just accept a ceasefire today, they will attack us again a few months later, just like they did last time.
I mean, I almost daren't ask you, but Witkoff says that he's trying to contact Mr. IRGC, the foreign minister of Iran, to see if he wants to talk. This is the same Witkoff who blatantly lied to President Trump, or President Trump is blatantly lying about him, because Trump says that Witkoff told him the Iranian negotiators said, in a nutshell, we are going to continue making nuclear bombs, which we know to be a falsehood because that's not allowed in Iran, making nuclear bombs. No Iranian has ever said that they are going to and are continuing to try and make nuclear bombs. So this is the Witkoff that now wants to talk to you. What's your message to him?
George, Witkoff is a liar. And there are 2 reasons that I can give that prove he's lying. One is that, fortunately, there were no direct negotiations. So the Omani foreign minister was carrying back and forth the messages. What he said when he went to Washington during the negotiations and hours before the attack is completely different from what Witkoff is saying. The second issue is that Iran, as you rightly pointed out, Iran's religious decree and its official position, its government position, has always been that we do not want nuclear weapons. So Iran will go and tell its enemy, during negotiations that, yes, we want to pursue nuclear weapons, it would tell its enemy that, but not the international community, doesn't make sense at all. It's a lie. And so it's only one of two things. Either Witkoff and Kushner lied to Trump because they're both Zionists, they're both ethno-supremacists. Either they lied to Trump to get him to launch the war, or Trump is lying. Both can be, or both. It's whatever it is, it's these three people: Witkoff, Kushner, Trump. Otherwise, the Iranian position has always been clear. And fortunately, because of the indirect negotiations, the Trump regime cannot hide the truth.
I think nobody believes them. Nobody believed Trump when he threw the Tomahawk story into the press conference the other night. I don't think anybody believes him when it comes to the negotiations. So they bombed you during the negotiations, and they bombed you the last time during the negotiations. So what circumstances might bring this to a halt? What about if somebody you trust, like President Putin, for example, were to seek to mediate a settlement of this matter? Would Iran be open to that?
I don't think that's the issue, George. I think the problem is that anything that the United States says is meaningless. Anything that the Israeli regime says is meaningless. They have already negotiated with us twice and secretly conspired to bomb us. So if a third party enters the fray, like the Omanis or anyone else, what difference does it make? What can bring the war to an end is for real assurances. The facts on the ground have to change so that Iran sees that its security for the coming years and decades is assured. And Iran has to be compensated. Those countries that facilitated these attacks, those countries that carried out these attacks, someone has to pay. They're slaughtering families, entire families. They're slaughtering kids, they're maiming people. They're destroying the country's infrastructure. Someone has to pay. And Iran is not going to let them get away with this. And Iran has the military capability to put pressure on them to make them concede or give concessions to resolve the situation. So this is for the negotiation in the future for Iranian diplomats and security officials to deal with and figure out what the solution would be. But talking with Americans is useless. I don't think any government can talk with Americans and have any trust anymore, because they'll say one thing today and do something else tomorrow, and the media and the Western media, they're obedient. Even the media outlets that hate Trump, when it comes to Iran, they're in bed with the regime. It took 1 week for the New York Times to gradually come out and talk about these children who were slaughtered on day one. We all knew it. It was online. Everyone saw the footage. People were talking about it for an entire week. And then after a week, the New York Times comes out and says, maybe there's a problem. No one believes that they're serious journalists.
No, I mean, I asked because President Putin spoke with your president just this day on the telephone, and I wondered what that conversation might be about. That was all.
I don't know. I mean, there was the UN Security Council meeting today, which they put a resolution to condemn Iran, completely unjustified, and it's not going to change Iran's policy because it's clear as day. The US has bases in the Persian Gulf and it attacks Iran. if any country, if France provided Russia with bases, or if Canada provided the Chinese with bases, and they launch an attack on the United States, or the Russians launch an attack on the British, could Canada ever say that we are neutral? Could the French say we're neutral? It's meaningless. It's nonsense. But the West, they want to pretend that Iran is the aggressor. We were negotiating. Even if the negotiations had failed, they have no right to attack Iran. These are war crimes. These are crimes against humanity. They murdered our leader. They murdered commanders of our own forces. They murdered all these children. So even if the negotiations had failed, they had no right to attack us. But we were negotiating. And then they launched this attack, and it was facilitated by our neighbors. So they should have no expectation. They should be very thankful to Iran for showing restraint. Otherwise, if the Iranians didn't want to show restraint, they could take out all their infrastructure within hours. These tiny Arab family dictatorships only have oil or gas, and that's it. They're completely dependent. They don't even have water. They have desalination plants. So they're totally vulnerable. But the Iranians have been patient. They've been careful. And these regimes should be thankful. But Western media pretends that Iran is lashing out. No, Iran is defending itself against the empire.
Well, we're very grateful to you, as always, Professor. May God keep you, and we talk to you in the course of these events, and hopefully again at the conclusion of them. Professor Seyed Mohammad Marandi, thank you for joining us on the mother of all talk shows. The poll is now 50,000 votes. Has Trump failed to win his Iran war? It's pretty overwhelmingly yes, he has failed. It's a negative result, but the quantum is important. Let's try and get that number up higher. Now, let me go straight to the lines where Yasser is in Quebec, and he wants to talk about Turkey and Iran. These comments made by Professor Marandi just now. Go ahead, Yasser. Welcome back.
Bonjour, Mr. Galloway. Thank you so much for taking my call. I'm taking the liberty of... Mr. Galloway, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Liberty of talking
yes, loud
about
and clear.
Turkey.
Go ahead.
I'm taking the liberty of talking about Turkey and its pernicious role, not just in the genocide in Gaza, harking back to October 7th, 2023, but in this ongoing war of aggression on Iran. As you are well aware, and I want to enlighten your viewers and listeners across the world, Turkey boasts officially 3 U.S. military bases. I think the most dangerous at this point of time is the Kurcik, K-U-R-E-C-I-K, radar station, also the Incirlik air base. And the role that Turkey is playing and has been playing, it has blood on its hands. Its ruler, the self-styled Neo-Ottoman Emperor, I think is very much complicit in not only in genocide in Gaza, having been provider of 40% of fuel to Israel all throughout the genocide, including 10 billion plus in annual trade. I was myself in Turkey right after October 7, 2023, and the country was brimming with Israelis right up to from one end to the other. Even the hospitals, the hair transplant clinics, the hotels, people there were telling me that you see Israelis all over the country. Right now, they are acting as sepoys of NATO. As you know, it's the only non-Western, non-white country that's a member of NATO since February 18th, 1952. They are effectively sepoys in that bloc, and they are very much complicit in this war of aggression in Iran. They have blood on their hands, especially their leader. And my question to you is, do you think there should be a public outcry. There should be call for boycott of Turkey, boycott of their companies like Turkish Airlines, and also the recent statements by former Israeli Prime Minister Bennett Naftali. Is it really like a true, real threat that he's hurling at Turkey? Or do you think this is all part of the game, making Turkey look like it's part of a pro-Iran alliance? And in effect, it's very much...
Well, Naftali Bennett is reflecting the prevailing view in Zionist circles in the settler state. They regard Turkey, if Iran falls, as their last important fortress that they have to besiege and, if possible, overrun. So I actually do believe that Israel will consider Turkey, which is a very powerful country economically, militarily, as a potential danger to them, notwithstanding the points that you've been making. But the reason the American bases are in Turkey and are being used right now is because Turkey can not refuse to allow that, because Turkey is a member of NATO, which is precisely the reason why Turkey should not be a member of NATO. Turkey should leave NATO. Turkey should lead the anti-NATO. Turkey should form an Arab and Muslim NATO-style protection agreement, complete with Article 5, so that any Muslim country invaded by the outside should be able to count on the collective support of all other Muslim countries. And Turkey is in the best position to lead such an organization. It's a monstrosity that such an historic, ancient, and important country as Turkey should actually have to allow American Air Force personnel to inhabit their country, to parade around in their country, and when crises emerge like this one, to actually launch attacks on a Muslim country from their territory. And this is all because of Turkey's ill-judged decision in 1952 to join NATO and its foolish refusal, given all of the evidence ever since, to leave NATO, which it very obviously can. Thank you, Yasser. Must take a quick break. I'm extremely late, and I've got Lieutenant Colonel Daniel D. Davis coming up right after this. You won't want to miss it, I promise. Stay tuned. My grandson, Sean, who's answering the phones tonight, had his first 1 million view tweet about Gaza, and I predict great things from him. So we're not going to go away. We believe in the next life. We believe that we will all be judged on what we did in this life, and that will determine our fate. And so we face whatever we have to face, if not with equanimity. Can't say that the experience was one that one can feel sanguine about. It was genuinely horrific, and I'll never forget it. It was the more horrific for being unexpected by me. I never believed that someone like me, of my age, and with my background and with my position in British politics, would ever be told that I was being held under the Terrorism Act. I'm not unmoved by it, but I'm certainly undeterred by it.
You are listening to the mother of all talk shows with George Galloway.
Lieutenant Colonel Daniel L. Davis knows everything there is to know about war, and he's been forced to understand the politics behind wars also, because we've been involved in so many of them. He's a frequent guest on the mother of all talk shows, and he never disappoints. Lieutenant Colonel Davis, welcome once again to the mother of all talk shows. How can I put this? The war's not going well for Donald Trump.
Well, you would certainly never know that from listening to Donald Trump, because he was just on television just a few moments ago of saying that he was surprised at how easy this war is going, and it's actually going really well, and we're accomplishing all the objectives, and we just keep blowing a bunch of stuff up. So he doesn't seem to agree with that, which is kind of at odds when you look at what's actually happening on the ground throughout the region with American soldiers, with Israeli people, and certainly with people in Iran. And then you look at that Strait of Hormuz, and that is a problem for not just the region, but for the whole global economy. So he might want to reconsider that.
Yes, I mean, no one believes him. The American media, other than Fox News, doesn't believe him. The Congress, when they are briefed in top secret briefings, emerge shaking their heads. Nobody believes that a war in which the United States has had to evacuate all of its bases in the Persian Gulf, has had to accept that the Straits of Hormuz are closed and staying closed, that a war which has seen Israel bombarded remorselessly, almost without counter, for night after night, indeed day after day, a war in which Hezbollah are now occupying a part of the north of Israel, a war in which 170 or so American casualties, dead and wounded, are finally now acknowledged, and in which your country has spent billions of dollars in a couple of days. It's hard to argue that as a success.
Well, it is, and especially when you realize that other than rhetoric, President Trump is not doing anything to accomplish the objectives. He wanted regime change. He didn't get it. He just changed out one Khamenei for another. He has severely destroyed or damaged their navy to the point where, at least, I won't say it's destroyed, but it's been severely damaged. But they have a lot of ships and speedboats, especially, which is what matters in the Persian Gulf. Many of those are still in protected locations in tunnels underground and are unavailable to use when they need them. So it's been damaged. It hasn't been destroyed. But you haven't achieved any of your aims, which is you don't have any of this 400 and something kilograms of reprocessed 60% uranium, which could be used to make bombs. We don't even know where that is right now, much less what they're doing with it. For all we know, they could be racing to a bomb, which is the one thing that would make logical sense. I hope they're not doing that, but there's no way to know whether they are. And it makes sense that they would, because that would be the one thing they could do that could preserve their national security. So none of the things that you said you went in there for have been accomplished, except there's a bunch of dead Americans. We don't know how much longer that's going to go on. There's dead Israelis. There's certainly lots of dead Iranians. There's dead kids in Iran. I mean, where does this end and where is it going? Because if you can't open the Straits of Hormuz, despite wagging your finger and threatening Iran, and they haven't done it, they're saying, bring it on, bring your ships in, let them, escort people through the Gulf, see what happens. Of course, we haven't done that because we know what would happen, but then that leaves you in the process that you're not able to accomplish anything you want. And without a ground force, there's no way you're going to. You just can't bomb somebody into the Stone Age. We don't have enough bombs to do that, nor do we have the morality. And the fact that we're even talking about, or you mentioned our ashen-faced senators coming out of his top secret meeting, that's because they were told, we're thinking about a ground force, which is insane, because that would take not only many months, like at least a half a year, to assemble, to get them ready, trained up, equipped, outfitted, and moved into theater. If you could find a jump-off place, it would be suicide to do, because all of the advantages are on the defensive side in those mountains with these well-trained Iranian troops that are well-trained for defense, and that's the key point here. They don't have to be able to go toe-to-toe with the United States and equivalent. They've just got to be able to defend effectively, and for us to go in there, it would be a bloodbath, and we probably still wouldn't win. win. So again, how easy is this again, Mr. President? Because I'm not seeing it.
No, nobody's seeing it, only the most zealous. And there are still some of those, but many of the biggest zealots for Donald Trump have now abandoned the field. Tucker Carlson is the most powerful opponent of the war in the world. Even Bannon, his former representative on Earth, I saw chuntering away against the war. Even Alex Jones, for goodness sake, was volcanically erupting about this disastrous war. Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes, all these figures that were once Trump's circle have abandoned ship.
They have. And look, when you start getting those names that are falling away, and of course they carry millions of followers, in many cases, each of those are falling away along with them. I mean, you see the numbers. There was a graphic that we put on our show earlier today that showed the support that Americans had at the beginning of a number of our wars, going all the way back to World War II. Then it was something like 96% after Pearl Harbor, et cetera. Even in the 2003 war against Iraq, which proved to be just catastrophically disastrous and based on complete fabrication of weapons of mass destruction, that was 75% support at the beginning. This one is 41. And if it's 41 at the beginning of this, and now that you see all these people abandoning ship, as you say, and then you see you're not being able to produce anything on the ground, and you can't extricate yourself. This is not like the situation with the Houthis in the Red Sea, where we beat our breasts and talked about how we were going to shut them down, and then after 7 weeks, and we couldn't do it after spending $1 billion, we just shrugged our shoulders and walked away and declared it success, but no one cared because it didn't have any ramifications. You can't walk away from this one because they've got the chokehold on the Strait of Hormuz, which is causing problems for all of us, and everybody's still in range, and we're running out of interceptor missiles. He can't just walk away from this one because I'm not sure that Iran would allow us to walk away. Even if Trump said, we're going to have a ceasefire, I'll declare victory and we're going to stop shooting. I don't think that the Iranians would, because they don't have any motivation to do that. They have motivation. They have, and this is hard to imagine, George, for the first time in 47 years, because of our war of choice, Iran now has leverage over us. They would never have it otherwise. But because we went to war and gave them every requirement to defend themselves and to take action to shut down the Strait of Hormuz, they have us over a barrel. And then unless we submit to terms that they may set, they're going to keep that thing closed, and it's going to cause problems for the entire global economy, which means they have a lot of leverage in their hands. And I think Trump is scrambling, trying to figure out how he's going to get out of it. And I think he's going to try first with more firepower, but he's going to find out that's not going to work. He's just going to get more people killed, but it's not going to knock the regime out or their ability to control that waterway, because it doesn't take that much. They have plenty of resources to get it done, not just with the Navy that we've destroyed, but other means as well. So I think that we're in a real problem here. The president is, and therefore all of us are too, because we suffer the consequences of his actions here across the Western world.
I agree with you, Lieutenant Colonel. This is an almost intractable. You'd need the judgment of Solomon to adjudicate on whether it's better to go on or to go back. I've just interviewed Professor Marandi. He was very clear that Iran will not accept any ceasefire except upon a long range of conditions, any one of which would cause, I think, the fall of the American presidency itself. So it's a kind of conundrum that I'm not sure we've ever seen before. You've got an increasingly unpopular president having launched an unpopular war even when it began, with global economic crises resulting, but no means of extrication. If you were, as you should be, in the top ranks of the Pentagon right now, Lieutenant Colonel, what would you advise the president to do?
I would say we have to suck down whatever crow we need. We have to be humility, and we've just got to say, hey, this was a mistake, and it's nearly impossible. And if you just said it right, for President Trump to do what's necessary, you said it would take the wisdom of Solomon. It really wouldn't. It's pretty clear what you need to do. It's going to take the courage of, I think, maybe King David or something like that, somebody really brave, because he would have to do something that is politically nearly suicide, and it would just destroy, I think, his ability to have any success in the midterms. But that's the necessary price because of the hole he dug himself into. And that is, we're going to have to concede something to Iran that we don't want to, which is why I say we have given them this leverage that they have never had before and wouldn't, except for this decision to go to choose a war that should never have been fought. So now then, the only alternatives are to either, and I didn't see your show, that segment, unfortunately. I'm going to go back and watch it to see what Professor Marandi said was going to be the requirements of the Iranian side. But whatever they are, they'll be ugly for him. But if you don't accede to them, they'll keep the strait shut down, and they'll continue to attack our allies in the region. They'll continue to hit our bases, continue to hit Israel, and we can't stop it. So Trump can't just not do what they want, because the price will keep going up. And at some point, he's going to have to, and this is the scary part, he's going to have to either eat a lot of humble pie and submit to some of these terms and find some way to get there, or he's going to escalate. And I'm not as worried about the ground force, because we don't have 6 months to build up. I fear he may, in desperation, try to use a nuclear weapon, or Israel may. I don't know. Now, for the first time, I'm worried about us using a nuclear weapon as opposed to Iran, which never had one. And, of course, who knows if they're building one right now. I mean, for all we know behind the scenes, that they may be racing to a bomb right now. That would be logical. I hope they don't. But I'm more worried right now about nuclear war than I ever have been in my lifetime.
Well, that's telling indeed from a man of your status and rank. What about the war in the White House, Lieutenant Colonel? I mean, J.D. Vance has gone absent without leave. We haven't seen hide nor hair of the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. Let me tell you, as a practicing politician myself, if I were them, I'd be announcing a joint ticket right now as the new MAGA, the new America First. If they stay on board this ship and it shows all the signs of sinking, they're going to go down with it, aren't they?
They are. They are. And I think that the vice president is in the most difficult political position of all, because it's nearly impossible for him to walk away, from literally from the job. But I think that Tulsi Gabbard, I think that she should resign. I think that she should say, this is everything I stood against in my entire career, all during her time in Congress, all during her time running for the White House in 2020. Ever since then, she's been talking about it. She wrote a book against it, against illegal wars, specifically about the wars against Iran, against Venezuela, etc. If she doesn't walk away, then no matter what she's saying behind the scenes, because I hear from insiders inside the White House and the Pentagon that she has been going to bat, that she has been saying, this is a bad idea, don't do it, but they didn't listen to her. Well, if that's true, then I think she has to walk away, because if she doesn't walk away, then it almost doesn't matter what was said privately. She's going to be painted with cooperating and enabling the government. So if she has any hopes at all of doing anything later on, she's going to have to walk away. Otherwise, yeah, she'll go down with the ship, and no one will ever believe she talked against it in the past.
I mean, who is he listening to? According to him, he's listening to a Fox TV host, his son-in-law, and his New York real estate guy. Has America ever gone to bat with a weaker panel of diplomatists? Has American intelligence had to suffer? Yeah, I mean, American intelligence is humiliated. The president says, I did this because of what my son-in-law and my real estate man told me.
Yeah, that was one of the. There's so many shocking things, but one of the most because we had admitted here in the Western press, I think Washington Post and several others, that there was a National Intelligence Council, NIC, classified, top secret classified document before the war, which told the president, don't do this. All the things that have happened, they warned against. They said we were not likely to topple the regime. They would not fall just because you hit a bunch of people, that they would not give up, etc. It's not going to work. Don't do it. And instead of going with the advice of that NIC, and that's done under Tulsi Gabbard, so I believe the reports that she was warning against this, but then instead he listens to his real estate guy and his son-in-law, who know nothing about military affairs and even less about the Middle East. And that shows the most profound lack of judgment that's even conceivable to me, which is why I'm worried about him not being able to make the hard decisions now that are necessary to prevent this war from spiraling out of even more control. So it's not a lot of optimism I have right now, I got to say.
No, nor I. And he keeps repeating this dark phrase that if they do this, if they don't do this, we will destroy in an hour, so that they will never be able to build their country again. These are all code phrases for nuclear weapons, aren't they?
Well, that's exactly why I fear that, because President Trump has shown that he has this remarkable inability to have the slightest bit of humility on anything, to ever admit that he was wrong on something. He just has to always paper over it, like what he did just before I came on the air here and saying, oh, the war's been easier than I thought, which is absurd and insane that you would say that when 7 Americans are dead that we know of. Some reports are starting to come out that number is actually higher, and at least 150, 160 that have been wounded on top of that. And you want to call that easy? I mean, that's insulting on its own right. But the fact that he can't show any humility and admit he's wrong makes me fear that he may take the easy path of just saying we're going to toss a nuclear weapon down here. And the fact that he said those things you just cited here do give me concern about it, because it can mean that. Maybe he has something else in mind. I don't know. But given his history, he could also mean that. And since there are no more guardrails in the American system of government, the Constitution expressly says only the Congress can send us to war. They have to declare it or authorize it. And the law says that the commander-in-chief can't take the military into action. And then they voted themselves away for that. So they gave away that power. So now it is literally like a monarch in his hand of the 17th, 18th century type, to where he alone can decide whether we use the military. That means I don't know who would then stop him if he says, I'm going to use a nuclear weapon to bring this to an end. Who's going to say no? Because nobody in the military said no about this illegal war. Nobody in the House, nobody in the Senate, nobody in the rest of America other than some disgruntled people, but nobody with power. So who would stop him if he was going to do that? That is an alarming possibility.
Meanwhile, he's in Kentucky trying to bring down Thomas Massie. How's that going?
Yeah, that's just another one of these really bizarre things. That's the one guy who's shown some political backbone in our country, both with the Epstein files, with trying to salvage for the United States Congress and saying, look, I'm trying to follow the law. I'm trying to follow the Constitution, hold the president accountable. And so President Trump is going after him because that's the one guy who says, I don't want anyone holding me accountable. I don't want anyone following the rule of law. I just want people being subservient, like Lindsey Graham, who literally goes on the Senate floor to talk about how the laws are unconstitutional that he doesn't like and that they just won't abide by them, or the Speaker of the House of Representatives, who also says, oh, well, this is not a war because they don't want to follow the law. It's just bizarre. It's 1984 playing out in front of our eyes. And he chooses to go after one of the one guys in the Republican Party that's actually showing courage and backbone. And that just kind of tells you the state of play in the American politics right now.
The state of play, indeed. Lieutenant Colonel Daniel L. Davis, host, of course, of the estimable Daniel Davis Deep Dive. Thanks, as always, for deep diving with us. Unfortunately, we didn't find any
pearls. Always my pleasure.
We found only danger. That's, of course, Dan Davis. I need to take a quick break, then it's your calls. right up to Gayatri's slot at the end of the show. Stay tuned. I'll be right back. He's a schoolyard bully, Piers Morgan. And he does have a big show, but then he has a big and plush and very well appointed studio. And he has a big and very well paid staff. He has a very big budget. He's an extremely wealthy man. And the combination of all of that does give you a certain head start. We, on the other hand, are a mom and pop business. There's just me and Gayatri. And the people who told me the phones are melting are my own grandchildren who are answering the phones for nothing. This is an unpaid gig I'm doing and do twice a week. Nobody pays me one brass farthing to make this show, to present this show. I'm not sure that Piers Morgan would tell you how much he makes.
You are listening to the mother of all talk shows with George Galloway.
Now, comments. You can scan the QR code and you can leave a comment on the YouTube stream. You keep it clean. I'll try and read it out. Like Lisa Lake. Wow, great intro editing. A big thanks. Not that I can take any credit for it, but for those who did, well done. Jack Klugman says they're going to go Oppenheimer on Iran, which is why MI6 and Mossad are targeting the Russian triad. Deb Ashist, 1184, says boycott the US World Cup. And Richard Barry, 04553, says it's really unsettling, to say the least, to realize that Trump and the US government have kicked off a war that has no way of really ending without an absolute apocalypse. Well put. Operation Epstein Fury, biggest blunder in military history. Yeah, I've described it as the biggest military political blunder since Hitler launched the Operation Barbarossa and the invasion of the Soviet Union. Let's go to, I think, Tom in Belfast. Tom, welcome.
Just first of all, I'd like to say it's an absolute honour to speak with you. You are much beloved in the north of Ireland and indeed across the entire island for your long-standing support of the efforts of reunification. It won't soon be forgotten.
Thank you, sir, very much.
Second of all, just to say that I want to contend with your previous caller, May, who seemed to be suggesting that in some way Donald Trump has been anointed by the Christ in some fashion. I just wish to point out to her that even the meanest of intelligence and the most cursory examination of the Bible would highlight to her that Jesus Christ would not be in support of the wholesale destruction of innocent men, women, children, infants, who are entirely guiltless of any crime of which they are erroneously accused by a corrupt institution, a corrupt government. I mean, Donald Trump is not someone who wishes to be the center of a political movement. He doesn't wish to be a political leader. He seems to me to be someone who aspires to be the leader of a messianic cult. He seems to want to be that which he pretends to follow, and that being some sort of God, some sort of uncorrectable individual who is infallible in every one of his utterances. It's often said that it's easier for a rich man to enter through the eye of a needle than to reach the way to heaven. And what is he putting his wealth to? The wealth of the American people, what is he putting it to? He's putting it to the wholesale destruction of innocent people, children, the most innocent, harmless, blameless, guiltless people in our society. That is what he is putting his wealth to. Do I think that Christ is against the accumulation of wealth? No, I don't. After all, the Good Samaritan had not only good intentions, but he also had money. So I don't think that that's a problem. I think it's the point that he is utilizing the wealth of innocent people, the American people who are, I'm sure, lovely people, many of whom are standing in support of the innocent Iranian people. And he is using it to cast destruction, to rain down hell upon the innocent. But what I would say, just to finish, I don't wish to keep you too long, is that he should remember that should he attempt to rain destruction down upon the Iranian people, he would do well to remember that they shall do as much for him.
Well, Paul, that was a very powerful and beautiful call, and I thank you for your kind remarks which preceded the main point that you wanted to make. I can assure you, after long association with May in Oklahoma, she was indeed being ironic. She is very much of the same view as thee and me, and she was really highlighting the blasphemous, sacrilegious aspects of these fake Christians claiming in Jesus' name to be committing satanic acts. For that is what exactly is happening. And it's vital for every believer to come out fighting on this. And I notice on Catholic Twitter, for example, people really are. The Pope has come out fighting on it. The Cardinal of Jerusalem has come out fighting on it. They're burying today in Lebanon the body of a local priest, parish priest, who was murdered by Israel a couple of days ago. The hierarchy and the faithful are especially offended at this maniacal, evangelical, sorry to say it, Protestant idolatry of Donald Trump. They're worshipping the golden calf, although age has withered him and burnished him orange. Paul in Belfast, beautiful call. Thank you for that. Now, a strong word of appreciation for another group of this week's Moats donors. Fantastic people. Michael Johnson, Owen Bulmer, Carol Hope, and James Glass, who's a very generous weekly donor, and Jason Godber Ford. A big thank you to all of you, and a big thank you to everyone who's going to donate. I know at the end of the show tonight, moats.tv, just click a donation. I'm worth it. £1, $1, or €1 for me and Gayatri's time. 4 hours we've been in this studio by the time it's finished. And I didn't tell you even what time of the day it is where we are. If I can't ask you for $1, €1, or £1 for that, I don't know what to say. Let's go to line 2, where Mohammed in Lebanon wants to talk about the disastrous situation prevailing there, where Israel has invaded. The resistance is fighting them back, but innocents, priests, children, women are being murdered on a daily basis by the Israeli invaders. Go ahead, Mohammed.
Hi, George. Thank you for having me on your show. And I just wanted to tell you how preposterous and disgusting this regime has been and the amount of destruction they've been causing in the South. I myself, I'm from South Lebanon, and we had to leave the second day. And everyone here, everyone in Beirut, the capital, is from the South. They've displaced hundreds of thousands. They're not sparing any homes. They're not sparing any people. In fact, just yesterday, there was a woman who was looking for a house and she couldn't find one. So she said, and I quote, "I'd rather die in my house than sleep on the streets with my children." And then the Israeli army did in fact do so. They bombed her, and she had no connections with anyone, no connections with anything. They've completely lost their minds. They're bombing everyone, everything. Hundreds are displaced, hundreds of thousands on the street. And it just seems that both the U.S. and Israel have completely lost their minds and are on a madman type of destruction run, destroying anything because they have no target. They're not targeting military places. The last war, they targeted more military places than now. Now they're just bombing everything that's in sight to impose a sort of will on the people and give them into a sort of depression. But obviously that's not working.
And what is your government in Beirut saying or doing about it?
It's doing nothing. In fact, they're helping them. They're arresting people who are going to the south to try to protect us. On the first day, the same day that the Israeli army announced the invasion, the army fled like cowards. They picked up their stuff and they fled from the points that they were holding to supposedly protect us and ran away, leaving the Israelis a red carpet to invade.
It's truly shocking, and it's going to get worse because the government in Beirut, having failed to lift a finger against the Israeli invader, now say they're going to disarm the resistance that is fighting the invader. How do you think that's going to go?
No matter what they try to do, it's not going to work because the people of the South, over 2 million people, won't stand by it. We gave them the time to say that they said they'll protect us in this 1 year of a supposed ceasefire, which Israel killed someone every single day, martyring thousands, and the Lebanese government launched it. So how do they expect us now to sit there and let us disarm the only people protecting us while the Israeli army is doing whatever the hell it wants in the South? No one will stand for this. We'd rather all go and die than let them take the one thing that's protecting us.
Thank you, Mohammed, in Lebanon. Now, the Moats podcast is in the top 5 podcasts for politics in Bahrain, Pakistan, Ghana, and the Gambia this week. How about that? Bahrain, Pakistan, Ghana, and Gambia. This week we've entered the top 5. We're in the top 40 for politics in the UK, New Zealand, Mexico, and Qatar. You can download the podcast by scanning the QR code on the screen now. Let's hear from Charlie in North Wales on the BBC. Don't get me started, Charlie. What would you like to say?
Likewise, George. Thank you for taking my call, George. I tried to get through Wednesday, but your lines are obviously red hot these days. And I just wanted to thank you for all the work you're doing, and I pray that you and your good family are safe and well so you can carry on the good work that you're doing. You are reaching millions of us, and that's a good thing. I don't listen to the BBC on principle, having seen firsthand the lies back in 1991 when I was stationed up in the Kurdish villages up in northern Iraq on the border of Iran. But it happened to be on in reception at my workplace, and everyone was listening quite intently, and it was Today programme. President Herzog was on ranting and raving, given a free platform, ranting about they want to kill all the Christians, they want to kill all the Jews, by implication saying all Iranians. I listened to the end and I was absolutely fuming, and colleagues were just tut-tutting, oh, isn't it terrible? And I said, well, you are aware that two of my best friends from school days are both Iranian. They both live in Tehran. They are at the very height of their national sporting bodies, both of them in Iran. They travel all over the world giving conferences and adjudicating. I won't go any further than that because it may put them at risk. I'm in quite regular contact with them, and both are devout Christians. Both married British nationals when they met at university. I went to school with them back in the 80s. So I said, well, it's strange, isn't it? Do you think these two individuals at the height of the sporting bodies, both of them who are devout Christians, would be in a position if they hated all Christians. So there are 300,000 Christians in Iran, and there's 11,000 Iranian Jews. Ooh, that can't be right. And it was just the tut-tutting and the sheer audacity to tell me I'm wrong, having kept in contact with both since the 1980s. And thankfully, I got a message from one the other day on the 5th of March saying he is safe. He's dispersed his family to different places around Iran. But I haven't heard from him since, unfortunately. But the Western media, it's I can't believe these open platforms where these messianic henchmen are just given a platform to rant and rave without being challenged at all. There was no challenge to his statements, and it just made me feel sick to my stomach. And this is the sort of mass media pumped out that people in their everyday comfortable lives just take in, absorb, and just tut, and then move on. And it does drive me.
Well, it's made me sick to my stomach, and I didn't have to listen to it. Charlie, that was a most powerful and indeed moving call. It certainly moved me. I had to look away from the camera for a minute. The point you make is well made. There are 100 synagogues in Iran. There are members of parliament in reserved places for Jews in Iran. There's no guards on the synagogues in Iran because there is no need for guards on the synagogues in Iran. There are hundreds of thousands of Christians in Iran. There are no guards on the churches, the cathedrals, because there is no need for a guard on the church or the cathedral. And I, like you, know this to be true because I've been in them. I stood inside them. Beautiful Armenian churches. The Armenian community was bombed by the Americans yesterday. The church, thank God, wasn't damaged. The lies that are told by our media or platformed by our media are devilish. They are demonic. They are satanic. For a variety of reasons, I hate them even more than I hate the politicians. Because the politicians would not be able to manufacture consent for this existential crisis of humanity which currently exists if it were not for their collaborators in the mass media, and the BBC, of course, is the worst. Charlie in North Wales, the call of the night and many a night. Now, later this week, 9 o'clock on Thursday, it's another campaign talk roundup. We're getting to the business end of the election season, and we in the Workers' Party, of course, are fighting hard in 100 constituencies in the country, as well as in the Scottish Parliament elections, and perhaps in the Welsh Assembly elections also. I'm not sure about that latter point. But our campaign talk roundup, it's chaired by Mark Belshaw. He'll be reviewing the latest campaign developments and the political events that have shaped the week. So it's live on YouTube and Rumble. Campaign talk roundup, Thursday, the 12th of March at 9 p.m. Let's go to Joseph in Liverpool on Trump and Israel. Joseph, welcome.
Good evening, George. First of all, I want to say thank you for the wonderful work you're doing. Without you, a lot of people will still be listening to the lies and the propaganda by BBC, Sky, and the CNN, and so on. So I think it's right. Everybody listening, if it's that £1 or $1 that you can, just give it to George. so that this can continue running. So there were a couple of things I was going to talk about, but I know we ran out of time, so I'll try to make it simple. Now, when all these wars started, I think the view of most people was because Trump was being blackmailed. Now, if that is the case, then without a doubt, the whole world will know that Trump is the dumbest person on earth. Because you can never give in to someone blackmailing you. It doesn't end. Until you die, the person will never stop blackmailing you. They've got that there on you. So if he's attacking Iran because Israel is saying, go and attack them, we've got everything filed, it's never going to end. I'm a Christian, but I hate to say that the only way Trump could make all this go away was to go and kill those that are trying to blackmail him. Not the Iranians that haven't done anything wrong. I'm sick to my stomach. I'm a Christian. And for the Muslims listening, please take it seriously from me. The only religion in the world that comes close to you, any religion that has a close relationship with Islam, is Christianity. We have so much in common. We all do believe in the same thing. Our only difference usually comes in how we see Jesus Christ. Christians see Jesus as a savior. Muslims see Jesus as a prophet, like Muhammad was. So it has never been the case of protecting Christians or anything. It was a full blood lie. That saying, as a veteran, I fell for that blood lie, and I went to Afghan. And all that was going on in Afghan, it was just for the pharmaceutical companies to steal the opium. So much lies is being told, and innocent children are getting killed. I wish Professor Marandi was on now, because I would love to send a special request. As a Christian, it should be easy for me to say, let's forgive them. But I'm more like the Old Testament person. Request to the Iranian army, please flatten Israel. Let it be like how they did to Jordan, to Gaza. And for the Gulf states that are complicit, I hope this backfires and come on you. And when it's happening to you, the whole world will say and watch. You cannot tell us you're getting attacked when your land is being used to attack these people. Under international diplomacy law, the U.S. base in your country, that piece of land ceases to be your land. It's USA. So Iran has every right to attack those places. I was based in Germany. The German law couldn't be enforced there. The German police couldn't even come into account because it was seen as being in UK. All these.
Look, Joseph, you made a very, very powerful call. I'm sorry it's been interrupted, apparently, but the message to Professor Marandi will have been understood and received by him. Thanks very much for that call. Big salute to some more of this week's topmost donors. We can't do it without you, as Joseph powerfully reminded you. We're grateful to Amira Kataria, Michelle Ward, Jim Rooney, Dennis Freeman, and Ahmad Khalaf. A big thanks to each and every one of you and everyone who is about to donate, I know. Now, is there a final call before Gayatri's social media roundup? Ronald, are you there, sir?
Yes. Hi. I can't believe this. It's a pleasure of mine. I am not used to social media, to be honest, and I just happened to flick it on. I started watching it more like during the COVID, but I see articles that are interest, and I notice you, and I love your passion and and how real you are, and I'm kind of a student. I was talking to the lady prior to coming onto the show, and I told her what really kind of triggered me was I noticed that some of the things that I heard you say was it was almost about the integrity of a lot of the American way of thinking, and how it's just doesn't really you can't really match the spirit of a strong spirited people, and I'm trying to say that in general because I really appreciate Islamic culture, and I appreciate the impenetrable and integrity of the spirit. And I say that you just cannot bring down a strong spirit just with weapons, or anything like that. No. And I'm just a little guy, from the neighborhood. And I remember at one time, I'm 66. I've been around a while. And I remember being in Portland State, I recall, we actually had, while I was a student there, there was actually the largest, I believe, Muslim population of students for a while. And then I think it's when that 77 thing came around with the Shah of Iran, when they had the helicopter issue. I witnessed this racism that I thought because as a person of color, I've seen it, but I've never thought that I would witness through it like the way I saw the way they were going after people. It was just crazy, and they kicked a lot of people out the country. And I still couldn't understand that fervor, how nasty that whole fervor was, but it just really gave me an idea of how politics seems like from the Western perspective seems to be just based on just guns and ammo. There's no spirit with it. It seems like it's all contrived.
No, there's none. There's no spirit at all. It's if anything, the spirit of Shaitan, the devil. It is wickedness beyond imagination. When I look at, as I do very closely now, the revelations in these Epstein documents, it's just beyond imagination. And it demonstrates the absolute degeneracy of the elite and the ruling class, the governing class, the owning class in Western society. And that cannot be separated from the devilish deeds of Donald Trump. If you can be a devil towards a child, you'll be a devil towards other people's children thousands of miles away. If your heart cannot be touched by the cries of a child in New York City or in Arizona or in Florida, they are not going to be touched. Your feelings, your heart is not going to be touched by the suffering of little children all the way in Iran. Thanks for that great call coming at the end of the show, because now here's the woman without whom the news wouldn't be the news. Here's Gayatri. What's rattling, Gayatri?
Well, on matters back home, I'm asking why and how is Keir Starmer still the Prime Minister when everything around him goes from bad to worse? Everything he touches just turns into mold, really. First, Mandelson, Epstein files. Secondly, the jury trial after 800 years gone. Britain is supposed to be the mothership of a Western world and the beacon of freedom and democracy. Except it is no longer. And the latest hammering on freedom of speech, freedom of expression, is the banning of the Al-Quds March, which takes place every year and has taken place for the past 40 years and is this year banned. And of course, the person who had to approve this ban was no one less than Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood. We all know her very well. And she quotes that about the banning. Should a stationary demonstration proceed, the police will be able to apply strict conditions. I expect to see the full force of the law applied to anyone spreading hatred and division instead of exercising their right to peaceful protest. Well, I don't know. Is it appropriate to say for me that she's more Catholic than the Pope ever since she's become the Home Secretary? Because what changed between her today and her back then, as we saw on the picture of her participating in the marches for Palestine, because that's what Al-Quds Day is. It's an annual event in which people come out and demonstrate for Palestine. hello, October 7?
I mean, you asked several questions there, but they are all related. And I wish I had more time to adumbrate. But the question one was, how is Keir Starmer still the Prime Minister? Well, the answer is not for much longer, if I'm any judge. In my opinion, he will announce his resignation effective after the May local government election results, because he couldn't expect anybody else to take responsibility for what is going to be the biggest election wipeout for the Labour Party, probably in electoral history. The 800 years of jury trial that came to an end today, that I referred to earlier, was a right given to us in ancient times, and has been an unbroken right for 800 years. And the motive for it is, as I said, no other than to ensure the conviction of pro-Palestine protesters, all of whom will now be denied a jury trial because the government knows that no jury in the land would convict them. And Shabana Mahmoud, my former student, I'm not sure if I should boast about that, but there she was in your picture on a demonstration for Palestine, and she's banned the demonstration for Palestine this very day. She's the reason we're here, Gayatri. She's the reason why we cannot go back to our country, my country, and your country of residence. More Catholic than the Pope, more royal than the King, or you could put it a different way, a rancid traitor to everything that she claimed once, pretty convincingly, to believe in. The only good news is she won't be Shabana Mahmoud MP at the next general election. I will see to that. Well, it's been marvellous, and I hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, come back on Sunday for the mothership, the original mother of all talk shows. We'll be on the air with the best guests, with the best calls, talking to people all over the world, all over the English-speaking world, and to English-speaking people all over the world. I hope we see you then on Sunday. Good night.